Right. So we have started with the discussion of our last chapter, which is regarding the automated environment. And in the automated environment, we studied the various business applications, then the various business applications and the various technology infrastructure. That is the various layers of an automated environment. Right. Then after that, we talked about the key aspects of auditing in a real-time environment, AMNH. Then we talked about understanding and documenting the automated environment, and not only understanding one time, but what does it say at each phase of the audit cycle, and then also the enterprise risk management. Okay, so now we come to our next discussion over there, which is regarding the IT risks and controls, right? The IT risks and control, and the next definition, the discussion over there after assessing IT related risks and control is the assessing the controls at the entity level and the process level. So which is the entity level controls and the process level controls. Okay, right. So now we are going to have two discussions regarding the controls. One, we are going to have a discussion regarding the general IT controls. Right, one discussion is going to be regarding the general IT controls. Then there will be a discussion regarding the application controls, and then there is one discussion over there regarding the IT dependent controls, right? The IT dependent controls. Okay, so this is one classification of the controls, and another classification of the controls is that the controls could be the ELC, that is the entity level controls. This could be the entity level controls, that is ELCs, or yes, they could be the entity level controls, or they could be the process level controls, or they could be the process level controls, right? Process level controls means the PLC, right? The process level controls. Okay, under the general IT controls, we have three over there: data center and network operation, program change, and the access security, right? So under the general IT controls, we have the data center and the network operations, right? The data center and the network operations, then the program change and the access security, right? The program change and the access security controls, the access security controls. And under the ELCs, right, under the ELCs, we have two types of ELCs over there. We have the direct ELCs, the direct entity level controls, and the indirect entity level controls, the direct and the indirect ELCs, like the direct entity level controls and the indirect entity level controls, right? So this is now going to be our discussion regarding the controls. Now, in one way, I can tell you, okay, general IT controls are nothing but entity level control. The name also is similar, no? General IT control means it's a control which is there across the entity. So it's an entity level control, but just that we have the two classifications of the controls over here: general IT controls, application controls, and the IT dependent control. And second classification is the ELC and the PLC, that is the entity level controls and the process level controls. Are you understanding that? And entity level controls have been further divided under the direct ELCs and the indirect ELCs. Okay. Right. If we have a look at the question bank, what does the question bank say over there regarding the controls? What questions are asked? One, in RTP number 22, they've put a question regarding the IT related risks and control. So they are asking about the general IT controls, application controls, and the IT dependent manual control. Right. So that is the question number 4 over there. Are you getting that one over there? The general IT related controls, right? The IT risks and control, right? So that is the question number 4 over there, right? Then after the general IT level controls, you have the direct TLCs and the indirect TLCs, asked two times in the exams, May 2018 and also November 2022, right? Which is regarding the direct TLCs and the indirect ELCs, right? So that is the question number 5 over there, right? That is regarding the question number 5 over there, right? And then apart from that, we have a retail question over there regarding the application controls, controls, right? So question number 7 is what? In the general IT controls, we have a specific question over there, right? We have a specific question over there, which is only regarding the application controls, right? So it's a retail question being asked. Instead of asking you all the controls, only the question is regarding the application controls. And then we have a few other points which we will discuss as we proceed further. Okay, right. So general IT controls. Now let's finish with the first classification and then the second classification of the controls over there, right? General IT controls means these are pervasive, these are overall, these are operating across the organization in the mainframe, mini frame, or the end user environment. That every employee, when they come in the organization, they should be having the access card. Now, this is not a control for a particular employee or for a particular individual or so. It is a control which is there across the organization. Say right now the rate of depreciation in the computer is 20%, but now you want to change it to 25%. So again, there is a control regarding who can make a change to a computer program. Or say a particular person's salary right now is 1 lakh, and now you want to make the salary of that person 1,20,000 per month. So again, who can make a change to this particular salary of that person? Who has the access to the master file? And the person having the access, whether he can make the changes to the master file. Right, right. See, customer salary data is there. So one, what does it say? The salary data should be authentic. So whatever salary is being processed every month, that should be calculated correctly. Then obviously, who should be having the access to the salary data and who can make the changes to the salary data? These are all the general controls that they are talking about. Right? This is what you mean by the general IT controls, the overall, which are pervasive overall. And then you have the application control. Application control means what? When a particular purchases is being recorded, what are the internal control? And a three-way check. And we have the purchase invoice, the goods received note, and the purchase order. Three-way check. Whenever a particular sales is being recorded, what are the controls in the organization? Right? Whenever you're filling any online form, are there a lot of automated controls over there? Yes, there are a lot of automated controls. You know, certain fields are marked with the asterisk. If you don't fill these fields, your form cannot be submitted. You understand that, right? So what is that? That's an application control. That is a transaction level control. So application controls can also be called as the process level controls. Are you understanding? The application controls, they can also, sorry, right? The application controls, they can also be called as the process level controls. Okay, they are the process level controls. Okay, and then you have the IT dependent manual control. What is this IT dependent manual control? That means it's a manual control. It is to be exercised manually, but it depends on the data which is derived from the IT. That is whether to give the goods to the customer on credit or not. Whether this customer, whether we should sell him goods on credit. If we should sell him on credit, how much credit? How much credit sale should we do? 2 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh. He is asking, give me goods on credit of 50 lakh. You understand? The customer is asking an employee of the company. Now, whether to give on credit, how much credit to give to that customer, you will decide on the basis of the information which is generated from the IT system. So, is the information going to be generated from the IT system? Yes, though the name has IT, but is it a manual control? Yes, based on the information which is received from the IT, you will decide whether the goods are to be given to this customer on credit. If to be given, how much credit is to be given to this particular person. Are you understanding that? So for IT dependent manual controls to be effective, what does it say? The general application IT and the general IT and the application controls need to be effective. Only then the IT dependent manual controls could be effective. Are you understanding? Only then the IT dependent manual controls could be effective. Okay, right. So now let's come to the discussion over here regarding the general IT control. So one, what does it say? When assessing the IT risk in an automated environment, one, you need to check the entity level aspects of risk, then the risk in the IT processes and procedures, and then the risk at each layer of the automated environment. Right? So you need to check the risk at the entity level, then process level, and also at each layer of the automated environment. Is it clear to everyone? And then what are the controls which have been put in place? Why these controls have been put in place? To to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, availability, and the security of the data. And what are the controls which have been put in place? The general IT controls. After the general IT controls, you have the application controls. And after the application controls, you have the IT dependent controls. Okay, general IT controls. What does it say? Policies and procedures that relate to many applications and support the effective functioning of the application control. So for application control to be effective, the general IT control should be effective. If your general overall controls are only weak, how can your application level controls work properly? You understand? So the general IT controls, right? They are applicable to mainframe, mini-frame, and the end user environment. Again, an MCQ made in the exam. Right, Ketai, whom are they applicable to? They are applicable to all, mainframe, mini-frame, as well as the end user environment. What do they ensure? They ensure the integrity of the information and the security of the data. Right, they ensure the integrity of the information. It is authentic, and also don't worry, nothing will happen to your data. Like just imagine, no, you can do a banking transaction online. So you are putting your user ID password over there. Is that not a huge amount of risk over there? Right, so again, whatever information is reflected, so it says the integrity of the information and the security of the data. And what are the controls divided under? The data center and the network operations, the program change control, the access security control, and the application system acquisition, development, and maintenance control. A, B, C, D. Data center and network operation, program change, access security, and the application system acquisition, development, and maintenance. Out of that, retail question is there for app data center and network operation, the program change control, and the access security controls. Are you understanding that? Data center and the network operations. Is there a retail question over there? Yes. Then the program change. For program change also we have a separate question. And what is the third one? The access security, right? So for access security also we have a retail question. Now for each of the three controls, general IT controls, they are talking about three now: data center and network operation, the program change, and the access security. For each of these controls, they are talking about two things. What two things? The objectives and the activities. The objectives and the activities. Okay, right. So what is the objective of the data center and network operation control? It says to ensure that production systems are processed to meet the financial reporting objectives. Then program change, that the modified systems continue to meet the financial reporting objectives. And access security, that the access to program and data is authenticated and authorized, again to meet the financial reporting objectives. So if you see the last line in the objective, everybody's objective is same. What? To meet the financial reporting objectives. And here what does it say? The production system, data center, okay, whatever data is being produced by your computer system, like Facebook or Instagram or bank or railway or stock exchange, whatever data is being generated over there, whether that data is can be used to meet the financial reporting objectives. Then if you make any change to that data, like salary of the employee, you increase it from 1 lakh to 1,20,000, or rate of depreciation, you change it from 20 to 25%, or rate of taxation, you change it from 10 to 12%. Then whether the modified systems continue to meet the financial reporting objectives. And also what does it say? The access to programs and the access to the programs and the data is authenticated and authorized, right? The access, because we always say this term, there should be no unauthorized access to data, computer programs, and there should be no unauthorized changes to data computer program. There should be no unauthorized access to data computer program. There should be no unauthorized changes to the data computer program. Are you understanding that? If there are unauthorized changes, then that's an IT risk. And if there are unauthorized changes, then what is that? That is an IT risk. There should be no unauthorized access to data computer program. There should be no unauthorized changes to data computer program. Are you able to follow this, everyone? Right, so that's the program change or the access security. Okay, access to programs and the data is authenticated and authorized to meet the financial reporting objectives. Okay, right, now over here, what are they talking about? Right, in the exams, how the question question is coming in the MCQ. है ना? They ask a question कि help desk functions, recording, monitoring and tracking are an activity of which of the controls? And they give 4 options over there, A, B, C, D. Data center and network operation, program change control, access security control and application control. So now you need to know that help desk function, recording, monitoring and tracking comes under the data center and the network operation controls. Are you able to follow this? Right. Then they say to ensure that production systems are processed to meet the financial reporting objective is the objective of which control? Again, 4 options, data center and network operation, program change, access security and the application control. So again, you need to know production system means they are talking about the data center and the network operations. Are you understanding that? Okay. Right. So data center is basically your RDBMS. Do you know RDBMS? The relational database management over there. Right. So overall management of the computer operation activities. Then batch job, preparing, scheduling and executing. It's a bad job. Like, iPhone, they do a bad job. They've released an iOS update after every few days. And it is not continuous. They say update 16.2, update 17.2, 18.1, 18.2. Right? So they keep on coming up with the batch jobs over there. Okay, Facebook also, WhatsApp also, all these apps. Do they get updated time and again? Right. So that is the batch jobs. Then also the backups. Right? Monitoring, storage and the retention. And the monitoring. So you installed your Facebook on a particular phone and then you changed your phone, or you log into another device into Facebook. So again, will you get to see the same details over there? Yes. So that is again your data is being taken care of. Then also the performance monitoring, the operating system, database and the network. Because what are we talking about is the data center and the network operation. Then are you able to manage the data on your own, or do you have any service level agreements? Right, so again, any outsourcing being done, that is the monitoring and the compliance, and again documentation of how the data is being processed, the operation manuals and the service reports. Right, the operation manuals and the service report. Right, so that's the data center and the network operation. Very simple, how the data is getting processed. Right, how the data is getting processed. Right, that is the data center and the network operation. Recovery from failure. What is BCP and DRP? BCP is the business continuity plan and DRP is what? The disaster recovery plan. Right, so business recovery plan and the business continuity plan and the disaster recovery plan. Let's say all of a sudden where the server of the company is kept, there is a fire which occurred. Right, so now what will be will the business stop? So again, it needs to have a business continuity plan, or in case if such a big disaster has taken place, what is the recovery? So you also have the disaster recovery plan and the business continuity plan. Okay, so that is all to keep your data integral and to keep your data secured. Okay, now this data, is it very secured? Is it being taken care of? Yes, but now who can make the changes to this data? So program change, what does it say? The change management process. Who has the power to do the change? Then who will make the request for making the change? Then who will actually make the change? Then after making the change, will they immediately apply it? No, first they will test the changes. Then they will user acceptance testing. What is UAT? UAT is the user acceptance testing, that whatever changes you've done, is it acceptable to the user? So the user acceptance testing. Then you apply the changes in the production. Then sometimes some emergency or minor changes are required to be done. Like say some senior official is not available, but an important transaction needs to be processed. So you need to make a change to the user ID password controls or so. Right? And again, over here you have the documentation. Is documentation there everywhere? In the earlier point also, was there documentation? Right, documentation of the manuals and service report. Here also the documentation of the user and the technical manual. And then whatever changes you've made, do you need to give the training to your employees regarding the new systems, the changes that you have made? Yes. Right, so this is the program change. Okay, who is allowed to make the change? From then how change request is received from whom? Then once the request is received, who can make the change? Then who tests the change? Then apply the change? Then emergency minor change? Then the documentation? and the user training. Right. Then after that, you have the access security. Access security, that access to data programs is authenticated and authorized. So again, access to program and data is authenticated and authorized. For that, what there should be? There should be the security. So security, organization and management. Then the security policies and procedures. Then the application security, the particular app, and whether anybody can hack or make any unauthorized changes to the app. Then the data security, sometimes I told you like some data gets leaked off the organization or so, right? So data security. Then the operation system security, network security, physical security, and also what does it say? The system administration and the privileged accounts. You know what can happen through the privileged account? Management override of control. Who has the privileged access? System admins, the database administrators. Who is DBA? They are the database administrators. And you also have the super users. Super users like the CEO, CFO, they have access to every aspect of the, every part of the application of the company. If I am purchase manager, I will have access only to the purchase module. But if I am the CEO of the company, I will have access to all modules of the ERP application, right? So that's a super user access, right? That's a super user access. Okay, right? So that is the access security control. Are you understanding? Your data process, then your how the change is being done, and you're talking about the security of the data. What they've done in the RTP, they've put the wholesale question. What they should do in the exam, they will ask the retail question regarding data center and network operation, or regarding the program change, or regarding the access security controls. Is it clear to everyone? Right. What are we talking about? The controls. Right, one controls which we finished discussing is the general IT controls. Now we are talking about the application controls and the IT dependent control. What does it say? Application control. That best example of an application control could be when you're filling up any particular form. Right, when you're filling up any particular form, what does it say? The date which you need to put in the form has to be in the format of the DDMMYYYY. And it does not accept the data in any other form. If you want to put a password, it says it should be minimum of the 8 characters, then at least one uppercase. Then what does it say? At least one alphanumeric character. It should not be the password which you've used previous 3 times. And previous 3 times what password you put, that cannot be put over there. Are you understanding? Then in addition to that, always nowadays for authentication of a transaction, OTP is sent on the registered mobile number. That OTP is sent, and only then the transaction gets processed. Like say you want to make a payment to a particular party from your bank account through online banking. So what you need to do, you need to add the payee over there. Then after adding the payee, you need to wait for 30 minutes before you transfer the fund. Then after adding the pay, then you can transfer the funds. You mention the amount. Then sometimes, on the debit card backside, there is a grid, A, B, C, D, the grid numbers given over there. Those numbers also you need to put, and then you need to put the OTP, and then the payment is made to the other party. So even though if I have to make to a payment to a particular party, these controls are there at the application level. This is not regarding who can make a change to the program. This is not regarding who is taking care of the entire data of ICICI Bank, or who is having access to the data. That is general IT control. Are you understanding? That is general IT control. Okay, data center and the network operation, then the program change and the access security. Now we are talking about at the transaction level, at the root level, at the application level. What does it say? Application level controls could be the manual controls, or it could be the automated control. Can it be either or? Yes. Is it compulsory that all have to be automated or all have to be manual? No. Can it be a combination? It could be a combination of automated or the manual. Then these controls are preventive as well as detective in nature. Right? They are preventive as well as detective in nature. Like sometimes, if you're logging into your bank account after a long time, and if you've forgotten your password, what does this say? Already 2 attempts have been made. If you make 1/3 attempt over there, it says your account will be locked, and then after that you have to go to the bank. Why? Because they suspect maybe somebody unauthorized person is accessing your account. So that is why they are preventing a fraud from taking place. Or if anybody is doing a fraud, the fraud will be detected. Right, so what are these? These are the preventive detective controls designed in such a way to ensure the integrity of the accounting record. So what is their objective? To ensure the integrity. And application controls relate to procedures to initiate, record, process and report transactions or other financial data. Right, so these are the controls which are there over the processing of the transactions. Right, these are the controls which are there over the processing of the transaction. So point number one, they could be automated or manual. Second, they could be preventive or detective. Then third one, what does it say? That these controls help ensure the transactions occurred are authorized and are completely and accurately recorded and processed. So third point is what? That they are completely and accurately, yes, recorded and processed. And then they tell you about the automated application control. What I told you, that format of DDMMYYY, what is that? That's an automated application control which is embedded into the IT application. Or that minimum password strength, what is required, that is embedded into the IT application. Or when I go to withdraw money at the ATM will check what is the balance in my account. That is an embedded IT control embedded into the IT application, right? ERP help in ensuring again the completeness, accuracy and the integrity of the data. And what are the examples of automated application? Edit check, right? Like whether who can make the changes to that particular data. Validation of the input data. Right, so again the validation. So if by mistake say you're making some payment through your debit card and you put the wrong debit card details, what does it say? Incorrect data, your transaction doesn't go further. So it's validation of the input data. Then the sequence number check, that is again, you know, the serial numbers which are auto generated for the next bill. Then the limit check, like, you know, for Netflix and all, they have the limit check over there, right? Limit check, that more than one user cannot see the screen at the same time. Or even for your bank transactions, there is a limit, you cannot withdraw more than 50,000 rupees in a day or something, right? So limit check. Then there is the format check, which I told you, DDMMYYY, right? Then the range check, that now you are writing about, you are selecting a month, date in the month of February. So the drop down, if it's not a leap year, it will only give you option 1 to 28. Will it give you option of 29 and 30? No. Right, so what is that? That is the range check, that if February month is selected, automatically only 1 to 28 will be received as the option. Then reasonableness check. Reasonableness check, that means they ask you, you know, okay, what you say, how many hours do you work every day? And they already give options. What options they give over there? 6 hours, 8 hours or 10 hours. Somebody wants to write 28 hours. They don't allow it only. They give only 3 options over there, 6 hours, 8 hours and 10 hours. Right, so reasonableness check, then mandatory data field and the existence check, etc. Right, so many a times when you do some transaction on your computer, what does your computer say? Please verify that, we want to verify that you are not a robo. And then he says how many car you can see, click on those squares over there, or how many traffic signals you can see, click on those squares over there. Right, so that is the existence data check. Again, I am waiting big time for this question to come in the exam. Consideration of automated environment at each phase of the audit cycle. Oh my god, it has come so many times in the exam. But now what is the next one which is due for questions in the exam is the application control. So they could be automated or manual. They could be preventive as well as detective in nature. Then they help to ensure the authorized, right? The transactions are authorized. Then you could be having the automated application controls. And then you have the examples of the automated application controls, right? You have the examples of the automated application controls. Are you able to follow this, everyone? Right, and then you have the IT dependent control. What is it dependent on? IT, but the control is manual. But why it is called IT dependent? Because the report, because the person who is exercising the control will make use of some form of data or information or report which is generated from the IT systems and application. Did I give you an example? Okay, whether the goods are to be given to this customer on credit or not, that is to be decided manually. But on what basis it will be decided? It will be decided on the basis of the report which has been generated from the computer system. Okay, so even though the control is performed manually, the design and effectiveness of such control depend upon the reliability of the source data. And due to the inherent dependence on IT, what does it say? The effectiveness and reliability reliability of the automated application control and the IT dependent control require the general IT controls to be effective, because only if the general IT controls are effective, then the automated application controls and the IT dependent controls will be effective. Okay, right, here we have a question which has been put in the study material of the ICAI, which says identify the controls which are automated, which are manual, which are IT dependent manual for the below mentioned cases. Right, price master configured in the sales master, right, can only be edited by the authorized personnel in the system. Right, so this is an example of an automated control. What does it say? What you have to select, is it automated, manual, or IT dependent? Then invoice cannot be booked in SAP in case purchase orders are not approved. Right, so again this is a automated control. Then inventory aging report is pulled out from the system, based on which the provisioning is calculated, and after analyzing the future demand by the inventory personnel and approved by the controller. So this is IT dependent manual control, because the report is pulled out from the system and then they decide how much provision is required. All invoices are signed by the warehouse personnel before the goods are dispatched to the customer. So this is a manual control. Then credit limit is assigned to the customer and goods cannot be sold in excess of the credit limit which is configured in the system. So configured in the system, that means again it is an automated control. All changes to the credit limit is approved manually by the sales manager. So manually by the sales manager means it's a manual control. Then aging report is pulled out from the SAP, based on which provisioning is calculated by the accounting personnel and approved by the financial controller. So again, what is that? The IT dependent manual control. And the purchase order, the goods received note, and the invoice are matched by the system. By whom are they matched? They are matched by the system before it is posted in the financial records, right? So that is again an automated control. Are you able to follow this, everyone? Right, so automated controls, manual controls, and the IT dependent manual controls. Okay, one more offbeat question over here which is there in the MTP. A company is using ERP for all its business, including the business processes, including the procurement, the sales, the finance, and the reporting. You are required to explain the statutory auditor's approach to identify the risk associated with IT system. So what should be the approach of the statutory auditor to identify the risk, but now associated with the IT system? If I read the points, if the first point, does any point come to your mind? The auditor should understand and document each phase of the business process in the form of narratives or flowchart. Where did we study this? Consideration of automated environment at each phase of the audit cycle. In the first phase, what was? Risk assessment phase. Second phase was what? The understand and evaluate. So there, that is the first step. And in each phase of the audit cycle, this was the first point over there. Okay, understand the business process by the flowcharts and the narratives. Then the next process will be to identify the areas and events that could lead to the risk, like manual invoicing or accounting once goods are dispatched could lead to incorrect invoicing and accounting, and hence it is a risk. So next, what you do, you identify the risk. So first you understand the business processes, then you identify the risk, and then the auditor will analyze the risk, the impact if it materializes. Next will be the prioritization in terms of the probability of how often the risk will materialize, right? So if it happens, what could be the impact and what is the possibility that it could happen? So first you need to understand the business process, then you need to identify the risk, and then analyze the impact of the risk. Right? Then analyze the impact of the risk. Okay, from where they got this question, they only know. Right? Mock test paper question over there. Right? That is regarding the statutory auditor's approach to identify the risk associated with the IT system. Right? So up to question number 9, have we completed with all of them over there? Right? Up to question number 9. Okay. Right. Yes. Are we preparing one table over here of the controls? What are we talking about? The general IT controls and the application controls and the IT dependent control. And for these two controls to be effective, the general IT controls need to be effective. Right? For these two controls to be effective, the general IT controls need to be effective. Now coming to the next discussion over there, which is the entity level controls and the process level controls. Entity level, the name itself means that these are the controls which are operating across the organization, from top management to the department transaction level. What does it say? From the board CEO of the company to the clerk of the company, from board and top management to the department transaction level. They are called as the entity level controls, which are indirect controls, which are pervasive controls, which operate from the board and top management to the department and transaction level. They operate across a company at all levels. So whether you are the CEO of the company or whether you are the peon of the company, all of you need to have an access card, right? So that's an entity level control, which operates from the across the organization at all levels, from the board and top management to the department and transaction level, which are the ELCs. What does it say? ELCs are the pervasive control. They are a part of overall internal control framework. And again, what does it say? ELCs are subjective in nature and hence require application of more professional judgment in their evaluation and testing. So they are subjective in nature. And then it says these ELCs could be of two types. What are the two types of ELCs they are talking about? Direct TLCs and the indirect TLCs. Direct TLC, which will directly help you to prevent or detect or correct a misstatement in the financial statements in a timely basis. And obviously indirect TLC, it cannot prevent or detect any misstatement. And obviously if it cannot prevent or detect, there is no question of it correcting. So direct TLCs, they help you to PDC. Indirect TLC, they cannot P or D, prevent or detect. If they can't detect, there is no question of correcting. But what does it say? They contribute to the effective operation of the direct entity level controls and the other control activities. Right? So direct entity level controls operate at a level higher than the business activity or transaction level, such as at a business process or at a sub-process level or at an account balance level, at a sufficient level of precision. Why? To PDC, to prevent or detect or correct a misstatement in a timely manner, like a business performance review. What did I tell you? Monthly traveling expenditure budget is how much? 30 lakh. And now only 10 days of the month are over, and how much traveling expenditure is already incurred? 55 lakh rupees. So what is your monthly budget? Month budget 30 lakh for traveling expenses, and only 10 days of the month are over, and how much traveling expenditure already incurred? 55 lakh, right? So that business performance review, that is a direct entity level control. Then monitoring the effectiveness of the control by the internal auditor. Again, what does it say? It's a direct entity level control, because internal auditor will find out, okay, these are the weaknesses, these are the deficiencies in the internal control. And indirect TLCs, they do not relate to any business process, any transaction, or any account balance. See, what did we say? Direct entity level controls, they relate to a business process, right? They relate to a business process, a sub process, account balance, or the sufficient level. What do they say for indirect TLC? They do not relate to business process, transaction, or the account balance, and hence cannot prevent or detect any misstatement. However, they contribute indirectly, that is why they are called as indirect TLC, to the effective operation of the direct TLCs and the other control activities. Okay, like the company code of conduct, you know that if the employee is caught committing a fraud, that employee will be rusticated from the organization. This is the company policy. Doesn't matter if he's done a fraud of 10 rupees or whether he's done a fraud of 10 lakh rupees. If he is found that a fraud is done, he will be removed from the office. Now, this will not directly help in preventing, detecting fraud, but indirectly will it contribute? Right, the company code of conduct and the ethics policy. Then the human resource policy. So again, that code of conduct is nothing but the human resource policies and the employee job roles and responsibilities. That is the segregation of duties that you have done. Okay, what did institute do? They asked an MCQ. What MCQ did they ask? Which of the following is not the indirect TLC? Which of the following is not an indirect ELC? Company code of conduct and ethics policy, human resource policies, business performance review, and employee job roles and responsibilities. Business performance review. So you know how the questions are coming. Everywhere I'm telling you how the MCQs are coming in the exam. You understand? So what does it say? Which of the following is not an indirect TLC? So business performance review, internal audit, these are direct TLCs. And code of conduct, human resource policies and practices, employee jobs and responsibilities. These are the right? These are the indirect ELCs. Are you understanding? Then as an auditor, when you are doing the audit, what you need to do, you have to understand information and communication of each component, right? We had already talked about the IT components in the beginning of the chapter, wherein we talked about the AMNH. Right, see over here, IT components of real-time environment, AMNH. Right, now they are again saying, okay, auditor, when you are checking the entity level controls and the process level controls, you have to understanding the information and the communication component. Again, what you have to understand, how the business process operate. Okay, how the Airtel is doing the revenue recognition. Then the relevant information system. You remember in our CRISM, we had the I. What was the I for? Information system. Right, so the relevant information system which is being used for the same. Then what are the risks and controls pertaining to that information system? And what is the reliability of the information which is generated from that system? So when I understand the business process, I understand nothing but the information system. And then what I need to understand, okay, how this information system is processing the business transaction, what are the risks and controls in using this information system, and how reliable is the data which is generated from this system. Right, so understanding the information and the communication component. So what we will have to do over here in the question, which word we will have to capture? Information. And also information, how the business processes are processing the information. For processing the information, they will be having the information system. So now this information system, what you need to check for, how it is processing the transactions, what are the risks and controls associated with the information system, and what is the reliability of the information generated from the system. Right, what is the reliability of the information generated from the system? Right, so definition of ELC, characteristics of ELC. Then you have the entity level controls, the direct entity level controls and the indirect entity level controls. Then understanding information and the communication component. Then you have the PLCs. What is PLC? PLC is nothing but the application controls, and a PLC is the process level controls. Right, at an audit of financial statements, the auditor determines the significant account balance and disclosures. 315 require the auditor to understand the business process that make up an account balance or a financial statement line item. Right, so 315, as a part of your risk assessment, do you need to understand the business process? Yes, earlier point also what we had said, we have to understand the business process. Earlier in the first three answers, what we were saying, you need to understand the applications. Now they are saying you have to understand the business process. And what is the business process? It is a sequence of activity that take place from the initiation of a transaction, recording it, approving it, posting accounting entry, and the reporting. And a business process is typically made of a subgroup of a logical grouping of the related activities. Right, so right from the preparation of the asset requisition note up to the payment to the vendor, that's the entire process level. That's an entire business process. You remember that from the purchase of a laptop, asset requisition note, up to the payment being made to the vendor. That is the entire business process regarding how a transaction is processed. Okay, right, so that completes our discussion regarding these two classifications of the control over here. What are the two classifications? One is assessing IT related risks and control, which is general IT control, application controls, and the IT dependent control. And another classification of the controls is the entity level controls and the process level controls. Under the entity level controls, you have the direct entity level controls and the indirect entity level controls. Okay, now that the auditor has to do the audit in the automated environment, he cannot use the techniques which he used in the manual environment for doing the audit. So now the auditor, while doing the audit in the automated environment, has to make the use of the data analytics. Right, he has to make use of the data analytics. analytics, right? So what is data analytics over here? It says the tools, techniques which are being used by the auditor to generate meaningful information from raw system data. The process of generating the meaningful information from raw system data is using processes, tools, and techniques is known as the data analytics. So when I read this sentence, you know what does it say? Generating meaningful information from raw system data. I think if I put a filter in Excel, that will be data analytics. Because first it was just the dump of the data. Does anybody know the shortcut of putting the filter in Excel? And all DFF, and you just select that particular table which you want and you put, and then you say all transactions done on Wednesday, all transactions with Mr. A. Can you put the different filters over there? Yes. So what have I done? It was raw system data. I converted it into the meaningful information, and that is what you mean by the data analytics, the process of generating the meaningful information from raw system data using processes, tools, and technique is known as data analytics. And then what they say, oh my god, data analytics methods which are used in an audit are called as same old thing, computer assisted audit techniques, or the cats. So first I thought, oh my god, earlier though I used to teach about cats, and now they are talking about data analytics, but it is like, you know, old wine, new bottle. And only the name has changed over there. What is the name now? Data analytics. But this is nothing but the computer assisted audit techniques only. It is nothing but the computer assisted audit techniques only, right? So first question we discuss over there is the meaning of the data analytics. It is the process of generating the meaningful, sensible information from the raw system data. You know, this we were doing also in a forensic audit technique of data mining technique, and a new hidden or unexpected information by automatically mining large volume of data. Okay, right? So the process of generating the meaningful information from raw system data using processes, tools, and techniques is referred to as the data analytics. And the data analytics which are used in an audit are called as the computer assisted audit techniques. Okay, now where in an audit can you make use of computers? That is the application of the data analytics. So what is the first question over there? The meaning. Then second question, the uses. Okay, where in an audit can you make use of the data analytics? As simple as where in an audit can you make use of the computers? So where I can make use of computers in the audit, one, while doing the preliminary analysis or doing the non-standard journal entry analysis and a management override of control. I can make use of computers in an audit while doing the preliminary analysis, like comparing current year with previous year, or also doing the analysis of the entries which are passed at 3 o'clock in the night by the CEO of the company. So the non-standard journal entry analysis. Then I can also use the data analytics for the risk assessment and also for the fraud risk assessment. Then I can also make the use of the computers for the control testing and also the evaluation of the deficiencies, right? The control testing and also the evaluation of the deficiencies, right? So that's the application of the data analytics. Where in an audit can you make use of computer? Where can you use computer? Preliminary analysis, non-standard journal entry analysis, risk assessment, fraud risk assessment, then the control testing and the evaluation of the deficiencies, right? And the third question under data analytics is regarding what are the steps to be followed in the uses of the CATS. CATS is nothing but the data analytics. And you know, do you remember? For steps, we need to remember 3 alphabets. What are the 3 alphabets? 3 alphabets. Why you are saying 4, 5? OPC, OPC. Very good, very good. Yes, OPC, the objective, procedure, and the conclusion. Right? So here it says before the objective, you understand the business environment, including the IT. So here before the O, there is one more point, understanding. Then after the understanding, you have the objective and the criteria. Right. Then after that, you have the procedure, and then you have the conclusion. And in the procedure, what you have over there? Data. What does it say about the data? Identify the source and format of the data. Like say I want to check the depreciation which has been calculated by the computer. I want to check the depreciation which has been calculated by the computer. So that is my objective and criteria. Then what I will do, I will identify the source and the format of the data. Okay, I require the PPE registered. Then what I will do, I will extract that data. Then once that data is extracted, will I immediately start doing the testing? No. First, I will check the completeness and accuracy of the extracted data. Then on that data, I will apply the criteria, and based on the criteria I will reach to the results, and based on the results I will give the report. Are you understanding that? So in the procedure, what is the important word over there? The data. Right, identify the source and format of the data, then extract the data, check the completeness and accuracy of the extracted data, and then apply the criteria on the data obtained. Are you all able to follow this? So 3 questions over here regarding the data analytics. What are the questions? Meaning of data analytics, uses of computers in audit, and the steps or the approach to be followed in the uses of the CATs, right? The steps or the approach to be followed in the uses of the CATs. Okay, right? So if I come to the question bank over here, right? Question in the RTP, what is the meaning and application of the data analytics, right? So that is question number 10. Yes, the meaning and application of the data analytics, that is the question number 10, right? Then another question which has been asked in your exams is the steps to be followed in the uses of the CATs. So suggested approach. So suggested approach is nothing but the steps to be followed in the uses of the CATs, right? So that is our question number 11, right? And then we have one question over there which is regarding the whistleblower policy. You know, we had already discussed regarding independence policy also. Now we know any policy, what it should be. First, in the company there should be a policy. Then that policy, should it be kept in the cupboard? No. Should it be documented? Yes. But should it be kept in the cupboard? No. It should be communicated to all the firm personnel. Then all the firm personnel should be aware of that policy. Then company should give the training to the employees to comply with that policy. Then they should also monitor the effectiveness of the policy and how the company deals with the deviations and the non-compliances. Right? So what does it say? Specify the procedure you would perform for understanding and evaluating of the whistleblower. Now, as such, whistleblower we had seen where? We had seen it in the SEBI LODR. You understand, no? Whistleblower, vigil mechanism, we've seen it over there. But this is one question which is there in the automated environment. Okay, does the company have a whistleblower policy? Then whether that policy is put in black and white. Then after putting in black and white, is it put into the mind of all the employees, communicated? Then whether the employees are aware of the policy. Then if they are not aware, give them the training. Then how does the company monitor the effectiveness? And if they come to know any non-compliance, how do they deal with the non-compliances? Okay. And then this is a study material question over there. Please explain some of the international IT related standards, guidelines, and the framework. You know, when I discuss the chapter of internal controls with you, at the end I talk to you about the COSO, the internal control integrated framework. You remember that, which talks about the operations objective, reporting objectives, and the compliance objective. Then we talked about the criteria on control issued by the Canadian Institute of the Chartered Accountants, which talks about the purpose, commitment, capability, and the monitoring and learning, right? Then after that, we talked about the COBIT. At COBIT, which was issued by the Information System Audit and the Control Association, which talks about the IT governance and the management in a company. Do you remember this? Right? Then we talked about the combined code. Now, I should not ask you, do you remember this? Do you find this familiar? Then now that's a better, now that's a true answer. Okay, right. So combined code, which is also known as the Turnbull report, issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountant of England and Wales, which talks about the internal control system and also reviewing is there is a need for an internal audit function. And the last one which we had over there was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which talks about the, right, we had the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which talked about the internal controls over the financial reporting, right? The ICOFR, yes, which was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So the auditor has to give his traditional opinion on true and fair view, and he also needs to report on the Yes, 143.3I, the adequacy of the internal financial controls and the operating effectiveness of such control. Okay, now out of this, over here in this best practices, now what was that? This, when we studied this in the chapter of the internal control, what were these? These were the international internal control frameworks. What did we study this under the heading of in chapter number 2? International internal control frameworks. Now what are we talking about? The, yes, all the best IT related practices which could be there in an organization, right? The IT related practices which could be there in an organization, right? The IT related practices which could be there, right? So IT, right? The standards, guidelines and procedures, what could be the best practices which could be there in an organization, right? So here they are talking about 9 practices over there. What is practice number 1? That the standards issued by ICAI should be followed while doing an audit of financial statements. Okay. Right. Then the statements on standards for the attestation engagement issued by the American Institute of the Certified Public Accountant. So this is issued by the AICPA, right? Which talks about the SAE number 16, right? The SOC 1 and the SOC 2 and 3. What is SOC 1? For reporting on controls at a service organization relevant to user entity, and for reporting at controls at a service organization relevant to the security, availability and the processing integrity controls other than ICOFR, right? So this is Indian, which context? In Indian context, which we have the core relevant ones, SA 402. Right. And while SOC 1 and SOC 2 are the restricted use report, SOC 3 is a general use report. Right. So that is the statements on the standards of the attestation engagement. What is number 1? SA. What is number 2? SSAE. Right. SSAE. Right. Then you also have the section 143.3I of the Companies Act, which requires the statutory auditor to report on the IFC, right? Which requires the statutory auditor of the companies to report on the IFC. Are you understanding that? Right, which requires, what are we talking about? The best practices. Okay, how will you ensure okay, there are good controls? So it says auditor will do audit as per standards. Then there are the statements on standards on the audit attestation engagement, SOC 1, 2 and 3. Right, then you have section 143, which has put it on the duty of the auditor that he needs to report on the effectiveness of the internal financial control. Then there is also the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. This is a requirement of America. And we said, no, it is an American law. It is issued by the, actually the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, what is the original name of this act? Right, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, the Public Company Accounting Reform, Public Company Accounting Reform and the Investor Protection Act of 2002 and the Investor Protection Act of 2002. Right, this is the actual name of the act. This is a US law. So which Indian companies need to comply with this US law? Those Indian companies which are listed on the US stock exchange, they need to comply with this law. Okay, but then here, why is it called Sarbanes-Oxley Act? Because this law was introduced because of the fraud done by these two fellows. So that is why in their memory, it became more popular as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. You wonder what is Sarbanes-Oxley? Sarbanes-Oxley is the surname of those two fellows over there. You understand? But actual name of the law is what? The Public Accounting Reform and the Investor Protection Act. So like, we have the Companies Act 2013. I think Companies Act 2013 can also be called as the Raju and Roy Act 2013. And Ramalinga Raju, and then you also have the Subrata Roy of the Sahara Group, right? So can you call it as the Raju and Roy Act 2013? No, but they've not so called it so. But I'm just telling you that just as they call it as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, here we can call it as the Raju. You say, why establishment of SFIO under section 211 and a serious fraud investigation office? Because Ramalinga Raju did a serious fraud. That is why they came up with a serious fraud investigation office over there. When he did the fraud, there was no office. After he did the fraud, the office was established. Are you understanding that? Okay, right. So anyways, we are talking about the fourth one over there, which is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which was the first one to talk about the concept of the ICOFR, the internal controls over the financial reporting. So what are we talking about is the best practices. What is the best practice? That you should do the audit in accordance with the standards on auditing. Second, you should follow the statements on the standards on attestation engagement issued by the American Institute of the Certified Public Accountants, the SOC 1, 2, and the 3. Are you understanding? Then after that, what is the third requirement? Statutory auditor of the company needs to do the reporting under 143(3)(I) of the Companies Act. Then it says Sarbanes-Oxley Act requires the company to have the internal controls over the financial reporting. It requires the company to have the internal controls over the financial reporting. Are you able to follow this? Right? This is the fourth one, right? So again, it says there are similar legal requirements in other countries like Japan, China, or so. Right, then COBIT. Have we already met COBIT over there? Right, in our internal control chapter, right? So it talks about the IT governance and the management, right? So the control objectives and the related information technology issued by the Information System Audit and the Control Association, which has been talking about the IT governance and the management in a company. Are you understanding this? All these are candidates for MCQs also, right? So SA, then SSAE, then section 143(3)(I), then the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So all these are S points. Then you have the COBIT. Then after COBIT, you have ISMS and ITIL. What is ISMS? Information Security Management System and the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, right? So you have the Information System Management System and the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Right? Are you understanding this? Information Security Management System, ISMS. What is it? It is an ISO certification which is issued by the ISO, and this standard, Information Security and Management System. So obviously it provides the framework, the guidelines and the procedures for the implementation of the information security and the related controls in a company. This standard covers the password security, application security, physical security, backup and recovery that are relevant when auditing in an automated environment. So what you also need to keep in mind, the ISMS, okay, whether the company is ISO certified as per the ISMS standards, the Information Security Management System. Then next one which you have over there is the ITIL. What is ITIL? The Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Right, so this talks about the information security and the controls. It talks about the information security and the controls. Pay attention in the class, right? Information Technology Infrastructure Library, it talks about the IT service management in the company. That what happened, your laptop, the microphone of your laptop is not working, or what happened, one particular application in your laptop is not working. So now who will take care of this IT? Or say your computer, laptop, you're not able to open a particular file, or you're not able to log into the system. So what does it say? The IT service management. They will look into the change management, incident management, problem management, IT operation, asset management are some of the areas that could be relevant to the audit, right? So Information Technology Infrastructure Library, right? So information security, then also the technology, right? So this is regarding the security and this is regarding the technology. Are you able to understand the difference between the two? Right. Then when you put your debit credit card information online, right, do you think that it would be secure? They ask you also now that would you like to save it for the future payments or so, right? So obviously for that also there is a payment card industry data security standard, right? So you have the PCI DSS. What is PCI DSS? The payment card industry data security standard. Any company that is involved in the storage, retrieval, transmission, or the handling of the credit card, debit card information has to implement the security controls in accordance with this standard. So whenever you're dealing with the debit card, credit card information, what does it say? They have to implement the controls, right? The security controls in accordance with this standard. They have to implement the security controls in accordance with this standard. Are you understanding that? And the last one is the cyber security framework. Who has issued the cyber security framework? The National Institute of the Standards and Technologies, right? Which National Institutes of the Standards and Technology. And what is it talking about? It is talking about the critical infrastructure cyber security, right? So ISMS was talking about the information security. This is talking about the cyber security. Okay. Out of this, which were the 2 points which are common with our internal control chapter? Right, this is what we are studying in the chapter of the automated environment. But what had we already studied in our internal control chapter? Right, we had studied two out of this. In the internal control chapter, we had COSO, COCO, we had the COBIT, then we had the combined code. Right, we had the combined code and we had the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, right? So which are the common ones? COBIT and COBIT, and Sarbanes-Oxley and Sarbanes-Oxley. What is it over here? These are the international internal control framework. These are the best practices to be followed in the IT automated environment, right? These are the best practices to be followed. What they did in the study material, they've put a full question. But when the question and others explain some of the international IT related standards, guidelines, and framework, how many are there? 9. What are the 9 over there? Standards on auditing, then the statements on the standards of the attestation engagement, then you have the section 143 of the Companies Act, then you have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Okay, then after that you have the COBIT, the control objectives and the related information technology, then after that you have the ISMS, the information security management system, then you have the information technology infrastructure library, then after the 4 plus 3 7, and then after that you have the payment card industry, right? The payment card industry, the data security standard, and then you have the cyber security framework. Is it clear? This is in the chapter of the automated environment, and then we had already studied the international internal control framework in the internal control chapter, right? So that's all from my side. Thank you so much, and thank you, and I wish you all the very best for your exams. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.